No Cap family, what's going on? It's your man Josh Crawford. Now we all know the wizardry that happened with Nico Harrison being saved from the jaws of disgrace and potentially death by Adam Silver gift wrapping them the number one overall pick in transparent conspiracy that we haven't seen probably since the 85 lottery with the Knicks. But nonetheless, there are going to be a 29 other picks outside of in that first round that will be debated outside of Cooper Flagg to Dallas. Because even Dylan Harper to the Spurs looks a little shaky unless they make a move. So I'm here. I got a couple guys that I'm high on, a couple guys that I'm not high on. First things first, Kasparas Yakuchonis. This is a guy that was looking like a top 4, top 5 guy to start the season. He was right in that discussion with Cooper, with a Harper, with a Ace Bailey, with an Edgecombe. His play definitely went downhill a bit as Illinois got deeper into the conference season. But for my money in the draft that a lot of people say is top heavy, is devoid of potential all-star talent once you get past that top 3 with Coop, Dylan, and Ace. This is a guy that I don't think should get outside of the top 5 because he does have a legitimate all-star, even all-NBA ceiling from my vantage point. Kasparas Yakuchonis basically averaged 15, 5, and 5 at Illinois his freshman year. Very impressive. And man, the first time that I watched him, I think early October, I was, this is Luka. This is Luka. This is a 6'5" Luka wearing orange right now. And of course, that's a bit hyperbolic, but as I watched him more and more times, he was one of my favorite guys to watch in college basketball. It seemed a little bit less hyperbolic. For my money, in comparison to what some of these other guys are at in the draft, in terms of, like I said, his tier, I would have a little bit more confidence in Kasparas than a guy like VJ Edgecombe or even Trey Johnson, just because he's shown the ability to do it. He's shown the ability to be a 1A offensive engine in a way that neither one of those guys have done so in VJ's case or has done so efficiently, I believe, in Trey Johnson's case. So for Kasparas, he's a great pick and roll creator. He's equally adept at creating for himself. He can also create for others with kickouts, driving kicks, things like that. And the first thing that stood out to me, again, very Luka coded, the advanced step back and footwork that he uses to get into his off the dribble jumpers from 3, despite not being a plus athlete. This is a guy that understands angles and separation very well. So whether it's a 1-2 step back, a tween cross step back, or when he gets into that, that mid-range area. So not super effective in the mid-range area, but a lot of the principle they use to create step backs and 3-point separation, he uses in the mid-range as well. So I'm a fan of that, and it's also something very important for him that he has at this stage, but also to continue to develop because he is not a plus athlete. So the same way that he's creating separation right now will be the same way he does it going forward. So he mentioned his pick and roll play, and I love the ability that he's equally, again, as adept as creating for others as he's creating for himself. And if we look at, these offensive engine guys that are in the league right now currently dominating, a Brunson, a SGA, Halliburton, although I think that he's definitely better at creating shots for himself than Halliburton ever was at this stage in either one of his years at Iowa State. But you see, again, if you look at the Final Four, what type of guards take you far? And I think that Kasparas perfectly fits that type of mold. Another thing, again, not being a great athlete, but shot basically 60% true shooting percentage at the rim. So he's a good finisher at the rim. Again, despite not being a plus athlete, uses the D-cell, uses angles, has an ability to fit with either hand. And again, that's something that I think bodes really well for him. And you see a lot of these big jumbo creators, these European guys really, Jaeger Dimon. I must know why am I dead around Jaeger, and I love him as a prospect too. But they have this theoretical size, but they don't really play up to it in actuality. And I think that Kasparas is the other way to where you look at him. I thought he was like 6'6", 6'7". He's only 6'5", but he just really has a level of physicality in his game, again, that you see around the rim. Another thing about Kasparis, this is a guy, and a lot of these Euro guys come in with it, but college basketball is not the best competition he's faced. This is a guy that won a gold medal in the 23 Euro Championships with Lithuania for their U16 team. And again, another similarity to that boy out, not Dallas, out of LA, Luka. This is a guy that played for FC Barcelona, basically played for one of the best teams because I think Luka played for Real Madrid, if I'm not mistaken, but basically played for the best non-NBA or one of the best non-NBA teams in the world as a teenager. So that's not nothing. Again, college basketball is not the high level of competition that he's seen, unlike 95% of the guys in the draft class. So I think the biggest reason why we saw him slide towards the end of the year, turnovers and efficiency with scoring. You know who else struggles with that? Basically every young guard in the NBA. So again, a lot of it was made about his assist to turnover ratio. Again, he ended with 4.5, 7 assists per game, over 3.5 turnovers per game. But, as a young guard, especially the amount of offensive load that he had to carry, because they had Will Riley, but for the most part, yeah, it was him. It was the other little guard that came from Arizona. There wasn't a lot of offensive creation offenses outside of Kasparis. So I don't really just peg that too much as a true inefficiency in his game. As he gets better, his role, he'll take on the workload that he had at Illinois, but I'm not too concerned with the turnovers or the lack of scoring efficiency. Again, with how much that he shouldered on his shoulders at his 1 year at IU. Defensively, that'll be a thing that a lot of people look at him and see. And it's definitely not a strong point in his game right now. But I think between his frame, this is a guy that's 6'5" and a solid 200, 210. And he's giving effort. He has the ability to slide 1 or 2 slides on defense. Again, he's not a LeBaron Fallon. He's not a Cason Wallace, any of these lockdown defenders that we've seen previously. But I don't think that he's a sieve in the way that a guy like a Luka has been in the past.
I like Andrew Nemhard's defense, how he gives 100% and active hands, just take care about defense.
So you have that. I think you have a lot of offensive creation, and it won't be necessarily taken out because he's giving all the points back on the other end. So for me, like I said, a lot of people look at the draft class and see maybe 3 All-Stars, depending on how you feel about Ace Bailey. But I think Kasparis Jakučionis, depending on what team he goes to, a team like Toronto is almost dying for a guy to be their primary creator. Scotty Barnes, I love you. Brandon Ingram, I love you. But those are not primary creators for successful teams. I think, yes, Kasparis Jakučionis could be. So I got my comparisons down here for him. Again, I got a 6'5" Luka. I got a Tyrese Halliburton. I think Halle was a better passer, but Kasparis is an infinitely better offensive creator for himself. And I think the absolute floor for him is a guy like Tyus Jones, who we've seen be a top-level backup point guard and a starter for a decent amount of his career. So it's a situation where, you can watch his game and you can just see the basketball IQ, the touch, the ability to manipulate defenses. It kind of jumps off the screen from my perspective. So, yeah, I'm really high on this guy, and I think that this is a guy that we'll look up 2, 3, 4 years from now, and we'll wonder again, okay, outside of Coop, Dylan, Ace, how was this guy not a top 4, top 5 mix? And we'll see, we got a long time to the draft, but if he gets anywhere outside of 8, 9, I think that'll be there'll be some teams that really look at him going forward and be like, we missed on that. So I'm really excited about him, and I'm really just excited for his archetype because, again, he's not a Luke, he's not 6'8", 6'9", but these jumbo-sized on-ball guys have really been the mold that have pushed the league so far recently, and he kind of fits perfectly into that mold. Derek Queen, the last one that I'll talk nice about, he's not necessarily on the overrated, underrated list. Now, the success of Alfred Şengün making his first All-Star team and the success that he had against Draymond Green in the playoffs, I think is very important for Queens' projection as an NBA prospect. Big time productivity as a freshman. Again, a freshman in major college basketball, very similar to Kasparis. First team All Big Ten. Again, as a freshman, we saw the game winner that he had in the NCAA, but also the way they, again, in a similar way to Kasparis, he showed up the majority of the offensive load for this Maryland team throughout the year. So you look at his game, and You talk about competition that he's faced before. It's not at the Casper's level to where he's a lot of international competition, but you're not going to get better preps high school competition than what Mount Verde faced. So a lot of people are going to look at him as like, okay, low post score. Not a lot of diversity to his game. I would disagree. Now, I don't want to stray too close to the Jokic or Şengün comparisons because he's not those guys yet. But he's not just a low post guy. He has elite touch, I think, in the mid-post, mid-range areas going out to 15, 18 feet. We saw him knock down some threes, but that's not his game. But he has really good touch all the way out to there. And this is a guy that, like, he can catch at 18, 20 feet away and back down and maneuver his ways into the spot. Into his spots. So it's not a guy that you're going to have to just, do some cross screens and put him on a block and get him the ball or he won't be effective. Now, I will say, again, he's not Şengün or Jokic, but something that I think that he favors them, his passing ability. Maryland was a good team. They had 5 guys average over 10 points a game, but there wasn't a lot of self-creators on that offense. So Derek Queen was oftentimes the guy that created opportunities for others. Almost 2 assists a game last year. And I think there's a higher ceiling for him to operate as a hub. Not quite as the way as Şengün operates because Murray is basically just an on-ball 2-guard. But you could throw it to him in the high post and allow him to find cutters, find shooters, diagnose defenses and identify openings in that way. Like, if you are a team who's quote unquote point guard, the shortest guy on the floor, like to score more, like to pass, Derek Queen can fit into that role right there and be a distribution hub in a way that I think people may not expect. Also, we know, again, low post score, that it is a fact that he's not a great athlete, not a great rim protector, but really good finisher around the rim. 67% field goal percentage at the rim, 1.34 points per possession at the rim. That's really good. And 60% on layups. So even though he doesn't have elite vertical burst, he'd still find his way to finish at the rim really well, which, as a Memphis Grizzlies fan, I saw a guy that was almost 8 feet tall, 7.5 feet tall, Zach Edey, struggle to finish at the rim all year long. So it's not a given that tall guys, or even athletic guys, are great finishers. So it's nice to see Derek Queen going the opposite way. Well, yeah, I'm not a great athlete, but I have the touch to finish at the rim. Now, unless you've been under a rock, you've been seeing the NBA playoffs if you watch this, and you've been seeing the impact specifically that Mitchell Robinson has had on the offensive glass. Derek Queen brings a similar dynamic ability to collect offensive boards. Averaged almost 2.5 offensive boards a game. That's a lot. But also, again, just his touch, but more so basketball IQ. He has, what it looks like to me, an innate ability to read where the ball is going off the rim, off a miss. I've seen it to where we had to get to the Mitchell Robinson level where guys were face guarding him to protect the defensive glass, and he still secures offensive boards. So again, you just look at his game, you see low post scorer, but as I'm stacking his case, there are a lot of different ways that I see him contributing outside of just throwing it to him on the block and hoping that he scores. Even in the pick and roll, and we know how dominant the pick and roll is in today's NBA. It's the reason why I'm high on Casper is a guy that can operate the pick and roll, and I'm gonna do the same with with DQ. Despite not being a super pop threat, you don't want him shooting threes right now, but he has shown a lot of nuance. Him and Gillespie showed a lot of nuance in the pick and roll in Maryland. So screen, rescreen. He's not a great screener, but he knows how to use his body. In the short roll, he's really dangerous. Whether it's popping for one of these little mid-ranges, whether it's an actual jumper, a floater, or finding a cutters, he's a guy that, without the offensive ability to shoot or the ability to be an above-the-rim finisher, he has just, again, crafted his niche in terms of his ability to be effective in the short roll, pick and roll situations. Last thing for me on DQ, of course, again, we know he's not an elite rim protector. Guess who isn't, though? Also isn't. Nikola Jokic, the owner of 2 out of the last 4 MVPs, shout out Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Very, very, very good hands on defense. Derek Queen has probably the best hands in the draft, but defensively, you see him using. He averaged over a steal and over a block a game at Maryland. And again, he's not Jokic, but he has a similarly defensive impact as Jokic. As like, hey, I may not offer a lot of protection at the rim, but in terms of getting my hands in passing lanes or being a guy that guards just can't blow right by without they can't just play with the ball on a switch, he has that. So yeah, Derek Queen, I think Şengün's performance in the playoffs bodes very well in terms of a positive impact to his stock. But also, I just think this is a guy that's too big, too skilled, too talented, has too much of a high basketball IQ to go outside of even a top 10 in this draft and for people to feel comfortable about passing on him. But no, Derek Queen is a guy that, out of the guys in this draft class that people consistently say is top heavy, he has all-star potential. And it really comes down to the team he's drafted by, how they use to deploy him, and how much they try to stay close to this base in terms of the strengths of his as a prospect versus how much they try to alter his game and his play style to their system. So I did enough of nice talk. Let's get to the stuff I'm not so high on. I can't even say February's right around the corner. It's not, but it's still a black show. Sorry, homie, but we're going to go with Con Knipple out of Duke. Sorry, Nick, too, by the way. Will Con Knipple be as high on draft boards as he is right now if Cooper Flagg was not his teammate? I would argue definitely not. He's not just Sam Hauser. He's not just a standstill movement shooter. He has shown the ability to attack the closeout. He has shown the ability to be a connective playmaker, stuff like that, off of a Cooper Flagg or Tyrese Proctor or a Common Malawa, all that. But I don't think he has any strength outside of shooting that dictates him being a top 10 pick. I'll just put it to you like this. Would you draft Malik Beasley this year or a prime Kevin Huerter? Would you take those with a top 6, 7, 8 pick in the draft? Probably not, because neither one of those guys sniffed the top 10. I just don't think that he offers enough versatility outside of the shooting to dictate where he's going right now. Yes, great movement shooter, all pin downs, all floppies, all that stuff. Yeah, plug and play right away. Even shot 62% of the rim. He's a good finisher off too. But I think a lot of this is the talent that he was around with a Flagg, with a Malawa, with the spacing that Duke roster had. Basically, all of his stuff at the rim was off a closeout, disadvantageous situation for the closing out defender. Looking at some of his tape, it's a lot of pump faking. It's a lot of, up faking 1-2, hoping the defender jumps. I just don't see him being a quality finisher at the NBA level, again, with his lack of vertical pop, but also this is not a guy that is exhibited a lot of touch around the rim. Again, away like a Casper's guy. This is not a guy that is succeeding at the rim despite his lack of athleticism. Knipple, 6'6", so he's gonna be a wing. Can he guard NBA wings? It's not a race thing, I promise. But his body type, for me, gives more so combo 1-2 versus, again, I think the guys that he'll be guarding at NBA level will be 2 wings, 2s, 3s, even small ball 4s. And I just don't see a scenario to where he's not attacked right away in the league with his lack of foot speed, but also, he's a big body bends, but he's not going to be the most physical guy in the league coming in, even as a rookie, even a top 3 rookie. So this is not a Con Knipple dump. Maybe it technically is because he's firmly in my overrated category. Like, will he be as good as Doug McDermott? I think Doug McDermott went late lottery his year, was a way better scorer, way more well-rounded scorer than McDermott, than the Knipple was at Duke. Obviously, McDermott was a lot older, things like that. People may see a little bit more upside in Con's game than they did in McDermott's. But from my perspective, if I'm a team with a top 6, 7, 8 pick, I'm kind of disappointed if I come out with just a movement shooter with a top 10 pick. And, NBA nowadays, you can never use enough shooting, but this is not a guy that I would consider within the top 10. Like, I've seen him below Trey Johnson on multiple draft boards. What does Con Knipple bring that Trey Johnson doesn't bring? Let me know. Second overrated guy that I'm not super high on, that a lot of people are high on, is this guy that's been pretty consistently in the 6 to 10 range, not getting outside of the lottery and a lot of draft boards. Colin Murray Boyles. Now, we're talking about productivity, super productive in his 2 years at South Carolina. But in terms of the NBA fit, and y'all know I love purists hoops. I love guys that has some idiosyncrasies in that game where they continue to contribute. I don't got the vision for my boy CMB in the league. Everybody wants him to be Draymond Green. I mean, that's a comparison a lot of people are saying, with the defensive versatility in terms of sliding on the perimeter, protecting the rim, all that. Draymond Green, first team All-American his senior year at Michigan State. Colin Murray Boyles, his last year at South Carolina, his sophomore year, second team All SEC. Now, South Carolina did suck for sure versus Michigan State was a tournament team, but it's level to it. Also, Draymond Green, junior and senior year, 36% and 38% from three. That's at 3 attempts per game. Colin Murray Boyles, 26.5% from three on only 1.5 attempts per game. And Nick, this is where I'll ask you to drop the clip of him shooting at the NBA Combine. That brother cannot shoot. He is a bricklayer indeed. Which is not necessarily it didn't kill his stock, but in terms of what he's expected to bring, shooting is definitively a swing skill for him. Again, going on the Draymond comparison, maybe it's unfair that I'm comparing him directly to Draymond like this, but that's the only way that not only me, but a lot of draft pundits see him making an impact. There's a big gap between him and Draymond as prospects, and Draymond was a second round pick. Draymond was a point forward at MSU. He's a guy that initiated offense, brought the ball up, rip and ran, all that. I don't see Colin Murray Boyles in that same way. He's not a guy that I'm going to expect to initiate an NBA offense. He's not a guy that I expect to even be able to handle the ball, honestly, in a half-court situation if it's not a dribble handoff type of deal. The big selling point for him is his defensive versatility. But if it's going to be a zero or a negative on offense, you got to be able to find a way to creatively involve him. And I don't see that same pathway as how Golden State has used Draymond. So, yeah, again, we'll get to the side of the ball he's really good at. Over 3 stocks a game at South Carolina, steals, blocks, all that. It's the same question I had with Draymond, honestly. And, if he's going to turn into a generational defender or he's going to maintain being a generational defender, then it won't matter. It's a tweener question. 6'7", 230, 235. You're guarding wings in NBA 6'7". I don't see Colin Murray Boyles being able – he's a great help side defender. He's a great guy that knows where to be in position defensively. But in terms of, okay, you're on an island with – you would not disrespect nobody. And Caris LeVert. Maybe I'll say it like that. Do I think that Colin Murray Boyles can stay in front of Caris LeVert in a needed stop? I don't think so. And Caris LeVert is literally just a average NBA player on the wing. I don't know. The positioning stuff is how his main draw on defense. But in terms of being able to get a stop on a perimeter, I'm not that sure about that, honestly. And again, 6'7", that's a bigger body in college. But even the rim protection, rim deterrent stuff that he's able to do in college, will it hit the same when he's the size of a wing in the NBA? We don't know. Trace Jackson Davis, I think he's a little bigger than CMB, but has had in the past a similar effect for the Golden State Warriors, but I don't know. I have almost no answers for him offensively, and a lot of questions defensively, which is supposed to be his strong suit. And with all that, I just don't think I wouldn't take this guy in the lottery. Colin Murray Boyles, and again, highly productive in 2 years at SC, but just not my speed, not my taste. And from my perspective, there's too many questions for him to be a guy that you bank as a tangible part of your future in the lot. That's it for me on guys I'm going to give a bunch of analysis to in terms of my overrated, underrated. Some other guys that I'm not that high on, that the consistency seems to be high on. Kaman Malawal, Bismack Biyombo. Bismack Biyombo. We thought that Donovan Clingan was going to be able to shoot, and I think he's infinitely less impactful as Clingan was at UConn. Jace Richardson. I loved your pops. And he, again, another guy that was really productive as a freshman on a team that went to the Elite Eight. But 6 foot, 6'1", not a true point guard, not a guy that's going to bring you that insane defense at that side like a guy like Fred VanVleet was. Yeah, I would not take him in the lottery as well. Asa Newell, probably a solid first-round pick. What is your NBA skill, sir? I can dunk. I have good touch. I was productive. At Georgia, a part of that same Montverde team with Cooper Flagg and Derek Queen. I don't see a translatable NBA skill for him, me personally. So we'll go to some of my other quick underrated hits. Carter Bryant, he was my selection to put to the Bulls and the mock draft that we posted on TikTok. As a guy, I would take top 10. Plug and play defender right away, encouraging. shot maker, encouraging mechanics at Arizona. And just listen to that guy talk, like him saying that he looked at film of Tamani Kamara. If he completely sold on being a lockdown defender on that level, all defensive wing type of guy, you are taking the top 10 and not look back, especially if he's not a guy that's like Andre Robertson, complete non-shooter situation. So the athleticism, the youth, the defense, and kind of honestly a guy that kind of seems to know his role. Really, really exciting for me, really enticing for me outside of the top 10. And especially with that athleticism, if he finds any sort of semblance of being able to create for his own, or at least being able to attack consistently downhill. I see Nick Clifford and Cedric Howard in kind of the same vein as experience, do it all college basketball wings. They're both very similar to Jalen Williams, to me, honestly. Now, Coward obviously went to Washington State, and Nick Clifford, I mean, not obviously, but kind of that same vein, super productive, older, experienced college basketball wings. But guys that bring a lot to the table, don't really take that much off of the table, and, outside of their age, don't really have a lot of weaknesses in their games. Big fans of them. Sion James is a guy that I would love to see the Grizzlies target as a late second rounder. He might not even be there by the time we get to our pick. But yeah, shooter, defender, mature, physical, can be a guy at 6'6", can play on the ball, can play off the ball. I think that's the exact type of guy that we need in our locker room, but also on our team to fill some roles. Jameer Watkins, another guy that could have came out last year. Kind of the same vein. A little bigger than Sion James. True wing, played a better competition for longer than Sion James. Jumper, definitely not the place where you would like it to. But yeah. So, yeah, guys, that's it. These are my NBA draft. Overrated, underrated. If you think I'm crazy, let me know. If you think I hit it spot on, let me know. If there any other guys you want to do some quick breakdowns on, I can also do that as well. NBA draft, one of the most exciting times of the year, honestly. So that was me. That was my overrated, my underrated. If you don't agree, get your own podcast. With that, I'm out.